Joining us now, former Washington Spirit and now current Houston Dash, back with the team that gave her her first opportunity in NWSL, and of course, former Ohio State Buckeye. No, I will not call them the Ohio State because I am a Michigan fan. But joining us now is Devon Kerr, Canadian international goalkeeper. How's it going, Devon?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me on here. But I'm probably going to hang up now knowing that you're a Michigan fan. So.
Born and raised, unfortunately. I apologize. But I respect Ohio State, if that makes it any better.
Okay. I'll take that little win.
way to start it off nice and smooth, Nick. Now you got her all upset.
Hey, I had to get it out there because I cannot say that the way that everyone at Ohio State likes to say it. So, anyways. Yeah, no, I'm not saying it.
We move on, guys.
Devon, you've had a very interesting career so far at the professional level and as well as at the university level. Recently, obviously, getting the chance to join the team, the international squad as well. What could you say about your international career and your just a career in general that has kind of got you to this point?
Yeah, my international career was kind of up and down throughout my entirety of being there. I'm still kind of in right now with the senior team, but I started out with the Canadian team in the youth program. I played in the Under-17 World Cup. I was the starting goalkeeper at that time and basically just went through a cycle with the national team at that point. And then I ended up actually switching over, and some people know the background of this. I switched over to Team USA, played a couple camps, a couple friendlies and stuff with the U.S. national team, and then ended up kind of being on like a hiatus from playing for a few years, and then ended up recently as last end of January, got the call into the senior Canadian national team. So that was the most recent I've been in with the team, which was obviously like very exciting to me and a long time coming that I was waiting for that call up. So, but it's been a pretty rewarding experience, humbling too in the goalkeeper position. So I think it's been pretty great, and I hope it's not over yet. So,
favorite moment from your international career thus far?
Honestly, I would say the call up to the last camp I was at was probably my favorite moment, just because I got to play with like all of like the top players that I've always looked up to since I was young in the same environment, and I'm just training with them like normally, and it was pretty surreal to actually be in that environment with them. I would definitely say that.
You're back with the Houston Dash, joining fellow Canadian internationals Alicia Chapman, Sophie Schmidt, and obviously Nichelle Prince, who not playing right now due to injury, but she is around the squad. What's that kind of been like returning to the Dash after a couple years away?
Yeah, I said that in my announcement when I got brought back to the team. It was just kind of a surreal feeling, like it was coming full circle back to the place that I started at, and just kind of getting that opportunity to come back to the place that gave me my first opportunity to like even make my pro career a reality. So that was really exciting, being able to be back here. And I know everybody on the team. It's just funny how soccer works. All the girls, we know each other from one club or organization from the other. So the relationships are great here too. And it's exciting to be back with Nichelle, because her and I went to college together too at the Ohio State University. So.
Devon's right on brand right now, just being her sassy little self. So well done. Talk about the NWSL for people that might not know too much about the league. What's the competition like? Would you say this is a top 5 women's league in the world?
I would say I have this debate with some people frequently. I actually think that this league, I would say, is probably the best in the world. And before I get kind of like attacked for saying that, it's because I think across the board from top to bottom in our league, every team could beat each other on any given day. And that's how I think about it, versus when you like go to leagues in England or Italy, or like the top leagues in Sweden or whatever. It's usually in France, usually your top like 3-4 teams are really, really powerhouse teams and really good, but then it kind of trickles off. And I played in France for a few months, and I was in the bottom half of the league. We were facing relegation, and you could see like the huge like difference between the top half and the bottom half, and it wasn't even comparable. They were like blowout games, like 10-0. So I think our league, the NWSL, is definitely, I would say, top one. Maybe you could challenge and say second league, but I definitely think just the amount of skill and the training environments that we're given here kind of put us at that really, really professional level that's trying to get on par with like the men's as well. Not there yet, but we're trying.
I laugh because that's literally the exact argument that I've made for the English Premier League being the top league in the world, being that the competition is always so consistent. In conversation with Houston Dash goalkeeper Devon Kerr, this season starts obviously today. Well, we're recording this on Friday, but when the show comes out, it'll be tonight for the NWSL. How is your team heading into this season? How confident are you right now? And what can we expect from the Houston Dash?
Yeah, we're really excited. We have a great-looking team on paper. I think the signings that we acquired this year are really big. Our team has a really good mindset of what we're trying to do this year. Obviously, we've decided as a team our biggest focus is we want to be still playing November 11th, and that's the final day. So that's kind of just like something that's been ingrained in our minds since the beginning of preseason is that date. We just say like November 11th a lot, and that's kind of like just brings us back to like why we're doing this. But we're trying not to focus so much on like making it be only about that. We just want that to be in the back of our mind and just understand like every single weekend is important for us to like get those points, put us in a good position, because as the season goes, we lose people for international duty, things like that. It gets a little bit more grindy and gritty kind of near that time of the year. So just wanting to like position ourselves in a good place early on, I think is really big to us. But we're confident and excited. We have a new coach this year. Everybody's taken to him really well. But I'm excited. I think we can, and it was Houston last year was their first year ever making it to the playoffs. So I think everybody's just excited and wanting to like build off that momentum and go even further.
Around the NWSL, who are some of the upcoming young Canadians that are doing well in the league?
Yeah, so Gabby Carl, she signed with Washington, my old club. She's definitely a big one to look out for. There is obviously like the OGs like Quinn, but Jordan is on the Reign. And she came from France, right? So like that's going to be exciting, I think, to see her kind of in action this year and just like how she like continues to build up her reputation in the NWSL. You have who else? You have Vanessa Gillies back with Angel City. She's a powerhouse defender, so like it's really exciting to see her back in the league. And then unfortunately Janine with what happened to her recently, so we won't be able to see her this year, but yeah, there's more I think about it, how many Canadians we have. It's actually crazy. And then we have Victoria Pickett. She's a year older than me, but I would consider her one of the young ones in the league. She's exciting to watch. She's just like sheer athlete and so much like physical capability. So it'll be cool to watch her get after it this year too. But it's exciting. We have the Canadians are taking over.
Oof.
The way it should be.
Yeah, I like to hear that. One name that you didn't mention there is Kailen Sheridan. Obviously, you being a keeper, she plays for the same.
She's gonna kill me for that one. Oh, no.
But talk about what it's like to see. I mean, she's now taken the reins as basically the women's national team number one. But to see her and go against her in the same league, kind of what's that experience like, and what can you pick up from just watching a player like that?
Yeah, I've known Kailen since I was little, and I remember growing up in like the NTC program in Team Ontario and always just like watching her at the OSA and being like, wow, she's so good, and trying to like emulate what she did. And it wasn't even that we had a huge age gap between us either. It was just there wasn't a huge amount of like really good female like soccer role models to look up to. So like when you saw them, it was very exciting to like be exposed to that. But actually playing in the league with her now and against her. And we actually just played her a couple weeks ago in a friendly in San Diego. It's really cool. And then I think the best part was when I went to camp last year with her and like actually being able to train with her. She's probably the best goalkeeper I've ever seen, top to bottom, shot stopper, handling, everything, her footwork. So it was really cool to actually like be in an environment and like learn off of her and kind of like be a sponge with her. And she's one of the nicest people I've ever met too. So it's very easy to be around her, but it's definitely exciting to like play against all these girls I grew up with in Canada and I've known since I was young and like at the professional level now. It's pretty cool.
You talk about, it's a good experience, to learn from them, but at the same time, you're competing against Kailen. So when you got that chance to go into the national team camp and you were, in training with her, explain kind of the competitive nature that you two were kind of balancing, obviously knowing each other from being young and now essentially competing for the same spot.
Yeah, I think that's how it goes with the goalkeeper situation. And you know this too, Nico, with kind of balancing like that friendship side of things and then the competitive side in training. But definitely, yeah, every training session at that camp, I was coming in trying to prove myself and give them a reason to argue that I could deserve that spot or I could be, being considered as a solid number 2 or whatnot, because we also had Sabrina D'Angelo in that camp. But yeah, I think we're at the level now where it's very professional and you don't really get muddied up with like the relationships on the field. You kind of keep that off the field and it's all business when we're on the field, which I appreciate that at this age now, you can definitely see the maturity and professionalism there. So I think it's great to train with her because it's such a high competitive environment. And I always know like I'm going to get the best out of her and then she's going to help me reach my best too. So that's all you can ask for when you have a training partner like that.
Well said.
Well said, yeah. In conversation with Devon Kerr, Houston Dash, and Canadian international goalkeeper, you mentioned not having many role models growing up when we were going through the system. With the availability of players nowadays and just the knowledge of the players nowadays, how important do you think it is for the Canadian internationals, the top players in the NWSL across all of the teams, to act as those role models for the next generation to help grow the game, not just in NWSL circles, but in Canada in general?
Yeah, I think visibility is huge. And when I said, like, I didn't have a ton of role models, it's more in the sense of, like, you're a male athlete. And it's actually funny because I saw myself as a female athlete. That people would ask, who's your role model? And I would shout out, like, a male goalkeeper. And they'd be like, well, what about your? And I'm like, well, you don't see it as much. Like,
yeah.
It's not as visible to us. So I think visibility is huge, especially for like the grassroots level of all the young females and males as well, but coming up through the program in the NWSL Canada all over. I just think it's really important to be able to like see what's achievable. And I think that was big for me that there's a space that I can like go to. I can become this professional. I can play at the highest level. I can get great training. I can have only this one job because financially I'm stable enough. And like, that's what I think we're hoping to like grow more and more, is to get us more on level with like our counterparts as the males. Just because I think it's so important to keep everybody like wanting to play soccer as much as possible and as long as possible. And I just like really hope that we can like create that visibility so it doesn't die out and everything kind of stays on this like positive trajectory. It's getting there. It's just it's slow moving, but I think it's important
to have more role models visible for these the younger generation. More opportunities have to be presented. So with the news of the potential upcoming Women's Pro League, Canadian Women's Pro League, I should say, what are your thoughts on the upcoming league, and how important is it that Canada has its own domestic pro league?
Yeah, I think that's really exciting. I think Steph, it's a really good vision that they have with that. I think it's important for Canada to have one because I think that's like, with all of the stuff that's going on the side with Canada soccer, as you've seen on the news and everything, I think implementing like a female Canadian Pro League is going to help kind of show that soccer is a big drawing force for fans and everything, because I think there's just a lot of stigma around it where they don't think it's going to do well or whatnot. But I think if you just give it the chance and see how it does, or see what kind of comes from it, I think it's going to do really well, and I think it has the opportunity to make big waves, and eventually, who knows, how well it does, it could become comparable to the NWSL, and that's what we hope for, is keeping our Canadian players in Canada and just having that proudness around Canada soccer as a whole, where I feel you see all of these players needing to go to different places to play at a competitive level instead of just staying at home because you have that available to you. And I'm hoping that's what it can get them.
Do you think the NWSL ever gets a Canadian team in that league?
Yeah, and kind of mirror the MLS in a sense.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense.
And do you think that will be a good sample size for the Women's Pro League if they do one team in Canada, let's just say next year in the NWSL, and then that's a good way to kind of target the market of Canada women's soccer? Do you think that's a good idea? And if so, do you think it'll happen?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea. I think, obviously, I'm not on the business side of things, so I don't know financially and everything how they see it going, and the risk and rewards for that. But I think it makes a ton of sense. I think adding one team and kind of mirroring it the men do, see how it does, have that team in market in a Toronto or a Vancouver or something, or Calgary, and see how it does. And it kind of can be a trial and error to see how realistic the Canadian League will actually do, and if it's going to be something that can actually mature and survive in the economy and everything going on right now. But I definitely think that should be something that they just try out to see.
In conversation with Devon Kerr, let's talk about the women's national team. Obviously, it's a World Cup year. What are your thoughts on the upcoming World Cup? What do you think the chances of Canada lifting up that trophy are?
I think the chances are high again. I am I'm very excited for the World Cup for them. I'm just a little bit frustrated on the Canadian side of things, how the funding and everything's been handled on the Canadian side, with the cut funding, the cut staff members, lesser training days, lesser camps, and we're talking a couple months before the World Cup, the biggest competition for the highest level you can get to right now. So it's a little frustrating, considering when you compare it to the men's side. And I know we're both men and women were arguing for equality in different ways, but you didn't see that happening to them when they were preparing for their World Cup. So it can be a little bit frustrating, and I'm really proud of the girls and being in with Sophie Schmidt and Chappie, and they're on the board for the negotiations for the CBA and everything, and hearing kind of what they have to say and how difficult and emotional it's been on them. And you have players like Christine Sinclair, who didn't want to represent the federation in the She Believes Cup because she was so upset with what was happening. And obviously they went on strike, didn't last very long, but it's upsetting. But I think the group of girls is so strong and amazing, and we feel we're having rallying support from every country. The thing at the She Believes Cup when U.S. soccer came together with them and they had those shirts on and everything, it was a pretty powerful movement, I feel to show that it's not just one country against a country. We're not just trying to fight each other for whatever. It's we're trying to come together for the greater good of everything, because when we're struggling like this, it's hurting female soccer as a whole. So I think seeing that support is really exciting. But I don't know. I think we have a very strong team, and regardless, the team's going to rise to the challenge and get through all the adversity that they've been facing. So I'm excited to see what happens.
I mean, Devon, you've been in and around these international teams for a while. Is there anything that you've seen in your times that kind of alludes to everything the women's national team have been saying, where you feel you know what, this could just be better? I just don't feel it's equal. Does any certain moment come to mind?
And with Canada Soccer, where I just don't feel like it's equal.
Yeah, like you actually being in the camp and experiencing it day in, day out.
Yeah, well, I can just say on the record, I haven't even been paid from my camp that was last year. And that isn't just me, that's across the board. That's all of us. And so, we're putting, and granted, I do know the men also haven't seen money from the World Cup. So, like, there's a big problem there as well. But I just think that's, like, ridiculous. And it's like, how are you going to, feel like you can get players to come and want to just, like, represent their country and do all these things when we don't feel like we're being treated properly or being, like, compensated for our efforts and time and everything. And so, but obviously, like, it's an automatic honor just to, like, play for your country. But I think we're at that level now where it's like, we need the compensation to be there. You need to be able to, like, put food on the table, pay rent and stuff. It's like, we're not talking big dollars on the women's side, at least for, like, professional lives. So it's like getting into those camps, getting those paychecks, I think are really important. Getting proper staffing available at camps. I think I saw that firsthand at my one camp I was in with Canada is like, you can kind of see some of the situations of, like, the rooms were being put in or whatever, or like the like availability we have for space and like the equipment we're being given and whatnot. And, like, it's just sometimes you can tell that it's, like, maybe lesser than it should be, but they're trying really hard to, like, get it up there. But I think it just comes down to, like, the respect that we're being faced with from Canada Soccer Federation as a whole.
I mean, you guys are held to the highest of standards, and everyone's expecting you guys to do so well in the upcoming World Cup.
Top 6 team in the world.
How essentially what you guys are saying, how can you expect to have all this expectation on us as players if you aren't even willing to meet the standards that you're setting for our expectations? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. It's like you can only do so much just as an individual, but when you're trying to represent your country on the biggest stage there is for soccer, and you're not being given those, like, proper conditions and stuff that, you've seen your counterparts receive in their preparation for the World Cup, it can be pretty frustrating because we want to represent our country properly. We want to put on a show. We want to make it to the final. We want to win the World Cup. And we want to feel like we are properly prepared for that and, like, able to compete at the highest level and show our best self. So I think that's just something that we're trying to kind of understand that might not be how it looks this year, and figuring out different ways to, like, achieve a good result.
And then, to your knowledge, what is the men's opinion on this ongoing dispute? Are they fully behind the women's team? To what you hear from the inside?
Yeah, to what I hear from the inside, the men have been great. They have been. They've been helpful with supporting us and everything to a point, because it used to be just like the women, it was pretty unequal just to the women. Like, the men were getting their fair share of things, it was good, and the women were just being treated pretty unequal. But now we're seeing, look, the men haven't even received compensation from the World Cup, right? So it's like you're now seeing that they're equally going through something that, like, you don't notoriously, like, see a male side go through. Right. And it's pretty shocking. And I think it just shows you, like, the level that we're at right now with the federation. But I think, like, us, like, binding together and actually, like, using each other and leaning on each other and stuff to try to get some positive movement going, I think has been huge. So.
And to end it on a more positive note, and do you see, are you optimistic about the way everything's now been going? I mean, obviously you guys have been dealing with a lot of crap for a long time, but now it's out on the table. It's almost like more. It seems like everyone now is backing you guys more than ever, and then with all that support that the team is getting, and women's soccer is getting in general, you got to be optimistic that the future is going to be looking real bright.
Yeah. And, like, again, to put it on a more positive note, like, I'm really optimistic about the way it's going to go. Every country, every organization for soccer, every federation has their problems. I feel like it's not always perfectly greener on the other side like that people think. I know friends who play for different national teams and the same thing's happening. I think it's just trying to highlight it and create like awareness of like the parity between the two, but knowing like we do have the faith that it is getting better, and we see the actions being put into place to try to right their wrongs and correct their mistakes and like take accountability for things. So there's no doubt in my mind that it's on the up. I just think that us as players just get a little, we were frustrated because we're like, why did it have to take us bringing it to this level to make it important to you? But being in this profession, we take little wins, and like that's the biggest thing. And it's just like one more step at a time, and hopefully it's like helping pave the way for the younger generation to come in and like not have to deal with these problems and not feel like they constantly have to be making like public statements and all of this stuff to like prove their worth as a team. So, but I am excited. I think it's getting there, and I think the right mentality is applied now. So I'm excited to see what comes from it.
What a great way to end it there. Devon, we really appreciate you joining us. Very insightful interview, and we can't wait to have you back on.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's great talking to you guys.
Good luck this Sunday.
Good luck on Sunday, yes.
Thank
That was Devon
you.
Kerr from the Houston Dash.